first we have to dream. We need to dream as human beings, first of all, before we can see what direction we're headed. We cannot think from inside. That I think Marie Baptiste talks about that. You cannot be the doctor if you're the disease. No, we cannot. We cannot operate like that. So we have to first of all dream as human beings, not as prescribed entities to follow dictates of these organizations. So this afternoon, all we want to do really is to get you to experience that humanity. We have taken ethics up to a point where we still talk about it as an it. That here, I'll give you some ethics here. I'll take these ethics to the university and I'll put them down like a noun. But what we need to do is that we really need to develop this idea of ethics as something much more than that. It's the heart and soul that wants expression, that wants to be free, that wants to do something. And that's what I heard this afternoon, is all the wonderful work that you're doing. Okay, let's see what's on. Okay, the ethical space, keep going. We're going to be doing this talk over time, you know, with your contributions. But the ethical space, just to rehash, let's look at what it says, is how we treat each other as human beings. Now, it talks about human beings, but if we want to push ethics a little bit more, you know, it goes into a discussion about how we treat other sentient beings. You know, ethics is not the special privilege of human beings alone. A mouse is ethical to another mouse. A grass is ethical to another grass, a tree, and you know. Ethics is almost universal. So we can think of this as a natural law. One of the universal laws, that the universe operates on this principle that we treat we treat each other in such a way that brings integrity, honor to the one that we're meeting. A mouse loves another mouse, a grass loves a grass, a tree loves a tree. That mountain has ethics to love the other mountain. And us humans, we really have to love each other. So the ethical space is connected to these ideas, and this is what we practiced yesterday, how we treat each other as human beings, as sentient beings, and this is the very basics of ethics. So when we talk about ethics, then we have to go into this moral arena, where we start talking about our values, we start talking about our spirituality. And so the task today is to kind of link up this idea of ethics and turn it into sort of an energy that we felt yesterday as we encountered each other. And from that energy, we have more practical ideas in terms of how we can link that up to our spirituality, because everybody in this room has a spirit, and that's what we want to work with. So the ethical space is about the encounter of strangers. We put it that way. The one next to you, the superficial, the prescription. So there's, the one next to you, you might be able to name the other person. You look at the name tag, but it's a very superficial encounter. When we meet the other, what is the response when we meet this other? What we call other, that's been written about in academia. But when we see other races, other genders, perhaps other class of people, other nationalities, other people with different bodies, and all these differences that come into play, and also the sentient creatures. What is your reaction when you encounter a tree, or when you encounter a mouse? these are all questions that relate to this. What we do know, what we start to have a hunch about is that this encounter produces incompetence. So normally incompetent people turn incompetent in this space. The encounter of sentient beings turns people into incompetent people. And so it's this incompetence that really forms a barrier in terms of how we could relate to each other. So that's what we practiced yesterday, and then the different responses that came out, of course, were quite varied. But how do we link up this idea of ethics, morals? You know, these are inwardness ideas that we can't. They're not tangible. We have a hard time working with these because we cannot use our hands and we cannot solely think about these ideas that are matters of the spirit. And so the task really, I've tried to try and make it practical, and so this is what I thought of, and so what I'm going to show you is perhaps one tangible way of starting to work with these energies that we have, work with the spirit that we have, because these are all the matters we talk about when we talk about ethics. Now, I give this reference because in Regna Darnell, 1991, I give that reference because she did those postulates or principles about the power between people, you know, the interaction, in the conversation, and it's what happens when these strangers meet, that we cannot see that, but there's a lot of power that is going back and forth, and I'm calling them energies, and also calling them, these are spiritual matters. So I give that reference in case you want to read more about, like for example, the role of silence in the encounter. You know, some of the pairs yesterday, as soon as they got together, they started laughing, you know. And is it so that when you encounter a stranger, you start laughing right away? You know, that's what I mean by incompetence. We're not really sure how we handle these situations. So how do we link up this idea of ethics, the moralities, the values that we carry? You know, ethics, and the question we had here on this wonderful artwork was that, what do we do with it? You know, we're trying to change. It's not an it. It's what we're trying to do is trying to center and focus. This idea of ethics lies within each and every one of us here, within our spirit, within our inwardness, and that's where it needs to. That's where it needs to be powerful. You know, that's where it becomes powerful. We cannot use ethics. It's not a noun. It's in here somewhere. But so linking up this idea of ethics and then turning it into something that's that each one of us has and is responsible for. We go through these ideas that ethics has to do with the human spirit, which is unseen. Unseen is the unknown. We cannot work with something we can't see. We can't manipulate it. So we have a hard time working with it. A spirit can, but nevertheless, a spirit, when we look at the spiritual level, the spirit inside each and every one of you can see the spirit of the other person. These are the teachings that we go through with our old people, our spiritualists, that the spirit can in fact see the other spirit. And so some days when you think you can leave your spirit behind, like this morning, I don't think I need my spirit today, I'll leave it in a drawer, and you put it in a drawer, you know, and try to function like that. But we can't do that. You know, if you did, then normally, since you're beautiful people, you comb your hair, you normally walk in here with your hair nice and flowing, kind of fluttering in the wind, you know. You wouldn't look like that if you left your spirit in your cupboard. So another spirit can see other spirits. This is the idea. So the central idea of spirituality is on how we approach the unknown. how we encounter the unknown. And that's the central idea that our spiritualists work with. So spiritual may be energy at the most primary level, that is sort of, at least up to that level. And spirit then, therefore, may also be thought of as energy. If we can do it to that level, then we have a different paradigm or a different formulation that we can work with. So spirit may be thought of as an inner energy, and any kind of discussion of this spirit, which is really a discussion of yourself, is the spiritual. Some criteria of spiritual / energy, some attributes or criteria are these: that it's an aliveness that happens. There's a consciousness to it. You know, we're not the ones that are ordering all these principles to be working. There's an awareness, and for example, a mouse knows how to be a mouse. We don't have any professors standing in front of a blade of grass telling it how to be a grass, and so forth. So there's a certain kind of awareness and intelligence. You know, when we pray, you know, what our elder this morning did, that wonderful thing, calling forth the spirit. He wouldn't have done that if he was thinking that we're praying to or invoking the spiritual world. If we thought it was dead, you know, we wouldn't do that. And neither do we pray in our houses, in our homes, because it's a dead world out there. So a central principle of First Nations Aboriginal spirituality is, of course, that spiritual world that exists. So it has a responsiveness. So these criteria are, I'm bringing these up because they're relevant to this idea of ethics and the exercise we're going to go through. But it has a responsiveness. And therefore, the spirit, as we think about it, can animate. It can move. And that's what the exercise yesterday did, show people that you know, that other person, even though there's a big empty space in between us, the other person's energies or presence animated them to do certain things, like start giggling, for example, or diverting their attention away, or you know, a number of things that they felt very vulnerable at that point, because even though there's nothing touching them and there's just a human person across from them, they felt these energies. So they can animate, they can move, they can influence, and therefore here we are. You know, you often wonder, you walk down the street and all of a sudden everybody seems to be waving at you, and everybody's acknowledging you. You know, it's probably your spirit animating other people, you're attracting. You know? So this is what I want to link up. This is what I want to do. Now, it's not that I've been sitting in a cubicle and dreaming and coming up with all these weird ideas that, you know, just for the talking circuit, you know. And they have practical place where it comes from. So here's the crash course. What is health? My friend Hampton told me, because we are so enmeshed in Canadian society, in westernized society and our indigenous societies, we're so enmeshed by different things that happened in history. Take the student residential school era. You know, we were forced into these English schools and etc. So our societies have been so enmeshed that as a Cree person, I find it very hard to pick out what is actually our own Cree thought. You know, that's not influenced not Western influence. So he told me practice that. So I took the word health, because I was in health research for a while, and I fed it to the language, the Cree language, and there are at least 20 words that came out, which tells us that healthiness is not a foreign concept to our people. You know, we don't need anybody to come and save us from our illnesses. But there are 20 words that came out talking about different configurations of health that a person might have. But here's one word, Mimachihun. Now, it's health. That's the translation, health. That's what it means. How are you? Mimachihun. Yeah, you can say that. But I needed to understand it further. So Miu is what I said to you in the beginning. Miu sinao, Miu asin. Miu go outside. Miu kisagao. Miu is always positive. It's good. It's always affirmative. It's beauty. It's it's a very good word. Miu, beautiful word. So that's what that means. And this one, machi. Okay, let's turn that. Can I have everybody stand up, please? You're falling asleep on it. Okay, when that comes on, please dance. Okay, put it on. Here we go. Get ready. Okay. There we go. Take a picture. That's good. Stop, please, stop. Okay. They'll throw us out of the hotel. They're partying in my room. What you just did is this word, machi. Machi. It means movement. Okay? So far what we have is Miu, machi, good movement. The ho is, I don't know how Santa's laugh infiltrated our language somehow. No, ho is the state of being, or I don't know how else you would say that. That's the way to be, the state of being. And when, of course, is the suffix that tells us, we have a whole system of how we do this good health in our cultural ways. So, put it together, the whole system of being in a state of good, positive movement. Yeah, well, how are you, Marlene? You can, if you knew Cree, you would say, oh, I'm in a system of good, positive movement. How are you? You can be teaching culture even as you're answering the phone. But that's what that word means, and still, it's still kind of superficial. You can still cut it down and take the root words. And so I took this word machi, which is what you just did, and into again its roots. Ma talks about, in our language, a repetition, something that repeats. You keep doing it over and over again. And chi is a little bit harder to to arrive at. But to make it short, what it talks about is a particle. You can take a needle when you get back into your room and you can prick yourself here on the skin. By the way, go buy a magnifying glass because you'll need to see, that tiny point you prick yourself with a needle. And so that's a chi. With each of these words, I have to, or these roots, I have to come up with words that contain that root and then try to extract the idea out of that. And so what chi produced is a particle. And I put all my papers away and walked around and said, I can't be. We're talking about an ancient language. We're talking about a language that is thousands and thousands of years old. How can it be talking about particles? But that's what it says, repeating particles. So what you did is, in your movement, and the way I could understand it is, if we think about the Large Hadron Collider in the border between Switzerland and France, 50 kilometers, I think, around. They fire a particle this way and collide them and detect. What they're looking for is a God particle. And the God particle, as Leroy Littlebetter tells me, is that you take energy and then something happens and it produces matter. So there's that little shift that happens. And so with their detectors, what I can imagine are these little lights that come on, that very, very minute, they can't see them, but they detect little lights coming on when they crash these particles. So repeating particles, I can imagine then that because we are in fact all matter, we are full of energy, that this is probably what's happening in our bodies, that we're just firing away all the time. This is where this picture, the star picture comes in, and so that is a picture of us, that each of us, that this is what I imagine in my imagination, that this then is why we call it dancing particles, because as above, so within. I'm picturing all these firing particles that are going like this in each of our bodies, as we're living. And that's where this picture comes in. And when I looked at you, some of you were very animated in that dance. Very animated. And so very animated. So I can picture you, those of you that are really animated, going like this, just your particles really firing away. And of course, I looked at some people too, and they were kind of jigging like this. Not as, a little bit slow. But you can probably go at the University Hospital here and go on I don't know what floor, and you will peek around the rooms, around, I don't know what floor it would be in, but you'll see some people just with their particles like that, ready to expire. You don't want to be like that. You can think about the time you met your spouse. What attracted you? What is it that attracted you to your spouse? And I'm suggesting it's like this. Your eyes met them. You never attract anybody like this. So dancing particles then, this is the central point, I think, when we're talking about ethics, that we have to keep exploring this whole field. It takes a discussion of ethics as a noun, and turn it over into more like an energy with the exercise we did and this morning, and then start connecting it to a spirituality that everybody has, and then we're talking about ethics, because it's at that level very often that we can think about the teachers, as children, the small little brown eyes in the classroom encountering their teacher, and if their teacher is like this, how often do they have their own lights being snuffed out because of the attitude of teachers? And we know that the universe operates on those principles, that the mice love other mice. Back home we have, when people come into our community, we tell them, don't hurt the mice, don't hurt the crows, don't hurt the birds. These are our band members as well. We have a band membership, and the elder told us that this morning as well. So, but when we're talking about the ethics, it's at this level then that things really start to happen, that somehow that the critical mass of energies working together, of spiritual people working together, can produce profound results, and that is the only hope that I see. Well, not the only hope, I shouldn't mean to say that we can have actually ethical research across cultural borders in this country. We still have not seen the extent that I would wish there was, but it's continuing. We heard some wonderful work this morning that's being done, and there's a lot of hope in that. But I think each of us then, having heard the message now, is responsible to to really try to understand what that ethics is when we're talking about ethics, and to work with that, and to remember that, you know, it's much deeper than the prescriptions or the bureaucratic prescriptions that we get from university. So I end it there, just as I want to allow time for any kind of question, and also give time to Marlene to do her presentation. But that's a crash course in the language, a little bit about the ethics, the nature of ethics, and the kind of the work that continues, you know, to try and make this cross-cultural, you know, make this a bit more harmonious, and maybe from here it'll spread and go into other areas around the world as well. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Willie. Way to get us back on time. That was profound, Willie. And it was when I asked. This whole conference is built around ethics and ethical space. We had a workshop yesterday where the invited speakers came, and we workshopped that concept, and we were led through some exercises to try to feel what ethical space is and be in that space. And for me, that's been just very helpful in moving forward, inspiring more thoughts in that way.